Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for iOS today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. The new iPad and iPhone are here, and this guy's got them.
Yeah, and I'm going to show you how I use the iPad Pro for podcasting, too.
And I'll show you my new blogging workflow. All that and more. It's time for iOS Today. Welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk about the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch, the Apple TV, everything with iOS in it. Megan Maroney is on assignment in Washington, D.C. today. Actually, she's touring around with her kid. But I'm so glad we could get you, Jason Snell, to take her place.
It's good to be here.
This week only.
This week only.
She'll be back.
She will be back from her assignment.
But everybody, I'm sure, knows Jason very well, former editor-in-chief at Macworld. He's now at sixcolors.com. Does more podcasts than I do. On the Incomparable, and yeah, it just goes on and on.
Sure, it's endless.
It's endless. And
I've been
listening to Pod for Ham, your newest.
Oh, nice, good.
Love it. It's kind of a crazy idea. They're taking the Broadway musical Hamilton soundtrack, and going through it song by song, which is and the songs are so good. Now, you play some of the song. Have you heard from anybody?
Well, I consider it fair use, right? We're actually critically discussing a very specific song, and so we use a little clip of it.
It's not like somebody could,
while we're talking about it.
It's going to sell the album, because people listen to it and go, I want to get the whole thing.
There's no way it wouldn't sell the album. But, so yeah, it's directly in fair use. The fact we did one that was a minute and a half long song, and we talked for 30 minutes about it. So yeah,
I think
it's
that's
that kind
fair
of
use.
thing. Yeah.
It's a little, ladies, it's a little obsessive.
A little bit. That's good. That's good.
And that's at the Incomparable as well, right?
Yeah.
Actually, you have your own podforham.com, I think.
Yeah, it just redirects to the Incomparable. It's all part of the same thing.
So this is good. I'm glad you're here, because you went to the Apple event 2 weeks ago.
I did.
You saw the new iPad, the new iPhone, and now you have them, and you're going to show them to us.
I have them here, yeah. I've got the newest stuff.
I noticed you're using, though, the big iPad Pro.
Yeah, this is mine. This is the one that I bought. This is the one that I use all the time.
Yeah.
I don't always use it with this keyboard, but today I'm using it with the Apple Smart Keyboard. And then I've got the 9.7-inch iPad with its Smart Keyboard, and I've got the iPhone SE, all the toys.
I was excited about the I'm calling it the iPad Pro Junior.
Baby Pro, we've been calling it Baby Pro.
Because I think the iPad Pro is a little too big for me to carry around. This fits just like any iPad in my backpack. I've got a little slot for iPads. It has a little baby keyboard.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's complete. As far as I'm concerned, for what I do, I wouldn't want to write War and Peace on it, but for what I do, it's adequate.
I think it's really good.
It's surprisingly good.
I was shocked, because I was very skeptical about the idea of a scaled-down keyboard. They've mostly scaled down the extra keys that are not the alphanumeric keys, like the return key is really narrow, but they've tried to minimize how much they've shrunken the alphanumeric keys, and I found it really quite typable, surprisingly typable. And because the surface area of the 9.7-inch screen is so much less than the 12.9-inch screen, the bulk on that as a cover is a lot less. That's what I don't like about the big cover, is it's heavy. And that one's super light.
And the Logitech even worse. In fact, I got the Logitech Create, and it was like heavier than my MacBook. I thought, well, I'm not going to use this anymore. But this is relatively compact, and I have, I carry around this is the Duluth Trading Company travel bag, but it fits beautifully in there, and it's easy to carry around, and it's not very heavy.
And most people, this is the iPad that they're going to want, not the big Pro.
Yeah, and it still uses a pencil. It does all the things that by the way, the sound is fantastic.
It's pretty good. 4 speakers, yeah.
Now, is it using all 4 speakers, or is it only using 2 at a time?
It uses all 4 speakers, and what they do when you're in a horizontal orientation, so you've got stereo left and right, and then it puts the higher frequencies on the upper speakers and the lower frequencies on the lower speakers.
Yeah.
And the idea there is you get a little more dynamic range, because those speakers don't have to reproduce all of the frequencies.
So I'm going to take out our jack so I don't hear it directly, but let me turn it up, so play it out of the speakers.
This is totally fair use, too.
Yeah, this is fair use. But that's filling the room. I mean, that has, the bass is decent. I mean, again, it's not, you know what it's really good for? Audiobooks are great. I've been now listening to audiobooks, and instead of porting it out over to my Sonos or some speakers, I actually just have the iPad in front of me and listen to it. Now, I noticed the battery seems, maybe this is mine, to deplete rapidly.
I found found that they're still shooting for that 10-hour battery thing. Although again, if you've got the smart keyboard attached and are using it,
is it draining it when it's just sitting there?
Well, I don't know if it's draining it when it's sitting there, but it is being powered by your iPad's battery.
I feel
so
like
there
the
will be some power
battery,
drain.
even when I'm not using it, like I unplugged it at 100% this morning. It's already to 74%, and I haven't used it today.
Well, that's not
so
good.
there's something. Maybe it's an app I've got on here.
It's possible.
I'll have to investigate.
Because they're trying to make it pretty power efficient. Like even when there's not a lot going on screen, it actually cycles down the refresh rate. Because normally all iPads are at 60 frames per second,
Which is
but this
high.
one will back off to 30 frames a second if there's not a lot going on. So and that's all just to save battery, to save on the video processing power.
One of the reasons the speakers sound good on the big iPad Pro is they have a kind of a speaker chamber. There's enough room inside that thing. They probably aren't doing this on the
Probably not so
on the
much,
Baby.
and it doesn't sound as good as the big one, but it sounds way better than, say, the iPad
Any other
Air.
iPad, yeah. All right. So anything else? We were worried it was 2 gigabytes of RAM. I don't see that. That's not been a problem.
Well, you know, they use shared video RAM on these devices. So there are a couple million fewer pixels on that one than on the big Pro. And so at least what Apple says, and I haven't been able to disprove it, is that they don't need as much RAM on that because it's got so much smaller, such a smaller display.
Right.
That it shouldn't make that much of a difference if you're switching between Safari tabs in terms of losing memory, and because that's what the memory is really there for speed when you're switching between apps. Because once it runs out of memory, it will quit apps in the background. And so if you've ever been using a couple of apps, and you switch to back to that app you used 3 apps ago, and instead of going immediately into functionality, it launches, and you watch it load. That is a sign that it got purged from RAM. So ideally, that would not happen, and I haven't noticed it being that much different from the big Pro.
What about Pro apps? You know, apps that are going to take a lot of memory, something like maybe, I don't know what maybe Lightroom or Procreate, or what's that 3D sketch program? Do those need more RAM? Is this going to feel like a constrained environment for them?
Well, I don't think so. I think that most iOS apps are written with a very low memory footprint in mind, and keeping in mind that the big iPad Pro is the only iOS device with 4 gigs of RAM.
Nobody's
They're not
gonna
going to write a program that's incapable of running on any iOS device except the big Pro. So it shouldn't be. It's more about switching between apps, having enough memory to run 2 apps side by side, maybe a picture-in-picture along with it, or being able to like open 10 tabs in Safari.
I'm pretty happy. I mean, even this 9.7-inch is a good enough size for me to use Lightroom, for instance. One of the reasons I wanted the bigger iPad Pro is because I thought Lightroom on this and the Photoshop tools on this would be really awesome. There's a Hooters, by the way, in Budapest, something you don't see every day. Actually, you do if you live in Budapest.
I suppose so. And the color management's actually better on that. That is using the color gamut, the wider color gamut that is the same as on the 2015 model iMacs. It's the most colors an Apple display has ever been able to show.
And I think it's big enough. This is actually a great tool for photo editing. And by the way, it's got the same camera as the iPhone 6s.
Yeah, it's actually a really good camera. The only downside I would say is they just released these adapters, and I actually brought them.
Oh, good. Should I get one of those?
These are the 2 little dongles. There's the camera adapter and there's the SD card reader.
And these are now faster. What's the new thing about them?
Well, so the USB adapter has a lightning jack in it, so it will actually serve as a powered hub, and it'll power devices. So if you've got a USB device that's power hungry, that's okay. It used to be if, like a microphone, you'd plug it into the old adapter and it would say, sorry, there's not enough power.
Well, or you couldn't use Ethernet, not because it didn't work, but because it needed too much power. You had to put it through a power hub.
And now you can chain the Ethernet dongle on here, and it will actually work. It doesn't tell you you're on Ethernet, but you are.
You're magically getting internet.
It magically happens. But this will support USB 3 transfer speeds, which is big if you're a photographer because you've got huge files that you want to transfer back to that iPad, except USB 3 transfer speeds only work on the big iPad Pro. The little iPad Pro only does USB 2 speed. And charging as well. You can use the USB-C charger that came with the MacBook last year. They released a USB-C to Lightning cable last week. And that's great because that has a lot more power in it than your normal AC adapter. It'll fast charge the big iPad Pro, but not the small one.
Oh.
So there's still some things
Okay.
that photographers and other people should be aware of that are not
Okay.
features of the little one, that are features of the big one.
That's good to know. And but you still might want to run out and get that new dongle, not for the speed on the iPad baby, iPad Pro, but for the capability
For the
to do power.
Yeah, the number of audio devices that I've tried to hook up to an iPad in the past and that failed because they just require too much bus power, it's a large number. And every device I tried with this plugged into power worked like a charm.
So I think I'm going to buy that. I was holding off till I heard your commentary on that.
No, it's great. I was able to take my USB microphone, the 2-channel USB mixer that I use with some podcasts, plug that in.
We're going to actually
It all
show
works
you,
fine.
because we're going to show you Jason's podcast workflow.
Yeah, a little bit.
On the show with the iPad Pro. Before we do that, though, let's talk about I want to call it the 5S. It's the iPhone SE. It sure looks like a 5S.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you would never think that this is a. Does this look familiar to you? This is.
Yeah.
It's an iPhone 5, right?
Yeah.
In all ways, except for the most subtle of ways, like the Apple logo on the back is actually a stainless steel cutout rather than a silver stamp.
Okay.
And the iPhone name is laser etched instead of being stamped. And the little chamfers on these corners, the little side edges here, were shiny on the old model and are now matte. So if you want to be Sherlock Holmes,
if you
and
bring
say,
this
aha,
to the
that
Antique
is not.
Roadshow in 200 years,
Right, that's how they'll be able to date
they'll
it.
say, "Oh well, I'm sorry. You thought you had an iPhone 5, but in fact, I could tell from the chamfer it's an SE.
It's an SE, exactly
and it's worth
right.
so much less."
Exactly right. So it's a familiar package. It's what's inside that has changed.
Which is
Everything.
pretty good, right?
It's basically an iPhone 6S with a couple exceptions. It doesn't have the front-facing camera of the 6S, and it doesn't have the 3D touch of the 6S, but that's it.
Is this yours, Burke? Whose iPhone is this? Wow.
It's a little...
That's a little smaller.
That's the
That's
4.
That's the 3.5-inch screen. So let me show you the. So and I don't have. Do
With
you
the
have
glass
your,
back, the
do you
shattered
have your
glass back.
your big iPhone
I do.
there, so we can give you some
That's the
sense of
6.
perspective. So now, really, so this is the original iPhones with 3.5 inches. This is the 5 and 5S, which is 4 inches, and then of course, what is it? 5 inches, 5.1.
5 point something,
Yeah, for the iPhone 6. But the big difference really is only screen size, because in every other respect, the iPhone 6 is the S is the same as the SE, right?
Yeah, so the screen on the SE is the same as on the 5S.
Yeah.
So it's not as bright, not as colorful. And the front-facing camera is the same as on the 5S, so it's not very high resolution. But the back camera is the 6S camera. It's the full 12-megapixel camera
like that.
From the 6S.
And that's a great camera.
It's a great
minus OIS. And so, in other words, this SE has the same camera as the iPad Pro Junior.
It does.
And as the 6S, the only difference between that and the 6S Plus is optical image
Yeah, and in
stabilization.
fact, the selfie camera on this one will produce better results because it's got the more advanced processor inside,
Right.
which does lots of digital signal processing.
Right.
So even though the hardware is the same, you'll get a better selfie, and it's got the flash on it. It's the front flash, so you'll get a better selfie that way too.
It really does feel like I've gone back in time, with this.
It's only the best 2012 design philosophy
Yeah.
mixed with technology from 2015.
And it's using the slower fingerprint reader.
Yeah, it's the first gen, the same as the 5S and the iPhone 6. It's the first generation.
So that is
Touch ID.
that is a difference from the 6S.
Yeah, and no 3D touch.
And no 3D touch, which I think most people aren't going to miss.
It's fine.
particularly. Yeah. Even the faster fingerprint reader.
But with Apple Pay, which I think is a big win. It
does do that.
It's one of the sad things about people who have had the 5S is they haven't been able to do the touchless little Apple Pay stuff because it doesn't have the secure element in it.
But that kind of explains exactly what this really is. It's a less expensive $400 starting point, right?
I think it's $350.
$350. Wow.
I think it's the cheapest new iPhone ever.
$350, and the smaller screen for people who want it.
Yeah.
But it's up to date in the sense that you can do Apple Pay. You can run any of the apps that are out for the modern apps will run just fine.
Right.
On this.
It's using the same technology as the top-of-the-line iPhone uses today.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who wants to be on the cutting edge, this is not a product for you because it probably won't get updated again for another couple of years. And this fall there will be an iPhone 7. But there are a lot of people who don't care as much about being on the cutting edge as they do about the size and design of this. They're the people who held on to their 5Ss because they didn't want a bigger phone.
Right.
And those people are going to be happy. And then also people who are looking for a lower priced phone. This is a relatively modern,
350's really good.
low-priced iPhone.
Yeah. That really puts it right in there, especially because it's got the camera you want. It comes in rose gold, as well as gold, silver, and whatever gray.
Yeah, I
space
think
gray.
it won't. I think the gold doesn't exactly match the gold of the
interesting.
5S because it's not quite the same color.
Oh,
It
that's
matches
so
the gold
funny.
of all the current models.
But show that graphic again, because there's something else I saw in there. Oh yeah, only 2 memory choices, 16 and 64.
Right. And it is $399. $399.
That's what I thought.
It was so the old one was $449.
Right.
And now it's $399.
So it's $50 less. So
yeah.
$400, but that's still a very aggressive price.
Yeah, for Apple especially.
But how much for the 64 gig? 500?
It's
Or
isn't it 100 more?
Is it 100 more or 50 more?
That's $499. Yeah, so 100
$499.
more.
So it's 100 more. And that's the one you want, right? Very few people should get a 16 gigabyte iPhone.
Depends on what you're using it for and how price sensitive you are. I mean, if this is your only way into an iPhone, then you can make do with 16. You can offload and your
Right.
camera images as
You just have to
often
be
as you
careful
can.
about doing that.
But you have to
Can't
to
put a
be
lot
more
of music
diligent.
on it.
Exactly. Although if you're streaming your music, maybe you don't care.
Lisa and I are making a trade because she has the 64 gigabyte iPhone 6S Plus, and I went all out and got the 128 gigabyte. And then ironically, I never use all of it, and she's run out of room. So we're just
Right.
going to swap SIMs. She's going to get my phone. I'm going to get her phone.
That's the way
because
to
I
do
don't
it.
need I don't need the extra room. So really, it is very different strokes for different folks. Some people she puts a lot of music on there. And I guess there's videos and other things on there that really can fill it up. I don't, because I stream everything.
Right.
So, all right. Well, 2 new products from Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And the watch bands. Are you wearing a nylon band?
No, I'm. This is a boring old.
You're not a Renee Ritchie where you have
sport
to have
band.
every band
I
made.
don't want every band at all. I do have 3, which is 2 more than I thought I would ever
already
have.
a lot. What is some people are saying they're not crazy. Megan's returning in the nylon one. She says it's too narrow. She doesn't like how it.
It's another style. I was just talking today to Mike Hurley, who I do a podcast with, and he loves his nylon band, and he said it's the favorite of any band that he's tried. He thinks it's way better than the Sport. Interesting about the nylon bands is that they're at the same price level as the Sport bands. So essentially, it seems like Apple is sort of saying, the nylon band is almost the default band now. And that if you want a sport band because you're an athletic type person, you can get the Sport band, but the
Yeah.
nylon band's the same price.
Yeah.
Which,
All right.
Yeah.
So there you have it. I'm really glad that you could bring the SE. Megan was saying, should we buy the SE? And I said, no. We shouldn't, because we already have an iPhone 5S, and we don't really.
And you have iPhone 6Ss, and at that point you've got all the features.
We
in
don't
one or
really
the other.
need all that stuff.
No.
But I did really. When we both got the iPad Pros, and that's partly because of you, Anthony Nielsen, our technical director, who said the problem with shooting the big iPad Pro is that it's a bigger screen, but the icons aren't any bigger. So as we shoot this, it's actually better for our shooting. You see.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, we get a better shot because we have to pull back to get the whole screen in there, so that makes everything a little smaller. So you can see.
Bit small.
We had a good excuse.
And big.
Anthony said it was okay for me to buy this.
I did.
Thank you, Anthony.
Good, very
You're
nice.
welcome.
I had a very good excuse. And meanwhile, I am right now ordering the Lightning to USB 3 camera adapter because I was waiting for you to tell me it was okay.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. People have been using that for lots of things because it's a camera in the name. Lots of things that aren't cameras,
Right.
that are other USB devices.
That's not really what it is.
And it's always been the question of, like, does Apple not want us to use other devices?
Right.
And so it was nice when Phil Schiller stood on stage
Use
at an
it for
Apple event
whatever
and
you
said,
want.
microphones, Ethernet, whatever.
Right.
All right, good.
Yeah,
Good.
everybody's ears perked up when they said Ethernet, and I stand corrected because I thought that you couldn't use Ethernet on earlier iPads, but there was a workaround with a powered hub.
Yeah, so you attach a powered hub. It seems like they have basic Ethernet networking built in.
The drivers are there.
But no configuration. So if you're on a network and it does DHCP, it'll find it and use it. And you could do that with a powered hub before, but now you just power the adapter and it'll do the rest.
You're watching iOS today. As I mentioned, Megan is on vacation. She went to Washington with one of her sons, and I've been watching the pictures, as probably you have, and some great shots. She'll be back next week. But I'm so glad we could get Jason Snell here from theincomparable.com and 6colors.com, which is a great website for people who want to keep up on what's going on in the world of Apple. One of the things you wrote almost immediately when the new iPad came out is, I think this would be the ultimate podcasting platform. Is that because of the new connector?
That helps. That's one step of the way there. There's still some missing pieces with podcasting on the iPad, but it's getting there. And Apple needs to make some software changes, because right now, on a Mac, you can record audio arbitrarily. You can download some software and press record, and it'll record the audio on your system. So if you're talking on Skype, you can also capture your microphone, and that's important for podcasting.
Oh, that's interesting.
You want to save that. On iOS, you can't do that.
Oh, you still can't do that on iOS.
So hopefully that will be the last step. Having a powered USB adapter is a big step, because you can attach a microphone, and the software is there now, but the operating system's not quite there if you're doing what most of my podcasts are, which is not in person like we are today, but is over Skype, because what you want to do is both have an app that you're using to talk to people and record your microphone.
That you need a Mac.
And you need a Mac right now, because two apps can't share the microphone unless both of them explicitly say they want to share it, and that is asking too much of Skype, apparently.
Yeah, that's always been a problem with Skype, recording both sides of the conversation. But have you done podcasts with your iPad?
So I've edited numerous podcasts with my iPad. Recording, not so much. Recording is sort of a two-device thing now. You can do it if you want to have, like, do Skype on the iPhone while your microphone is attached
to your... If it were just you, if it were a solo show, it'd be fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and you told me that story.
I'll show you how I do it.
You go under the covers and record.
I'll show you exactly what I do. So we have two different workflows. Jason's going to show you his podcast workflow on an iPad Pro, and I'm going to show you, I've kind of created a blogging workflow on my iPad Pro, and I'll show you some of the tools I use. But why don't you kick it off?
All right, so the program that I'm going to use here is called Ferrite Recording Studio.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one, so already I'm learning.
So it's free with 2 in-app purchases, so essentially it's a $20
And it's multi-track?
It is a multi-track editor, just like Logic. I've imported some files here.
Is this, I mean, I could use GarageBand kind of, couldn't I?
Yeah, GarageBand is really focused on music, though. It doesn't want to give you the flexibility of editing. So you can use it, but I find myself fighting with GarageBand a lot, and Ferrite not so much. So the things I love about Ferrite, I mean, you can do all of these sort of, zoom in.
Oh yeah, see, I use Amadeus Pro on a Mac to do a lot of that kind of thing.
And then
this would be very handy.
If you want to edit a clip, you can select it and then just swipe down, and it will split that clip in 2.
Oh, I like that.
And then if I want to,
that's like Fruit Ninja for audio.
If I want to tighten this up, exactly right. And it's got a lot of nice shortcuts. So one of the editing methods I do is, if after I make a few cuts, I want to slide everything forward. If I do a triple tap, it will select all the tracks that are forward. And then I move them along, and then I drop them there.
You, for instance, you do radio plays on the Incomparable.
Right.
And the way Jason records the radio plays is each of the actors, and they're all on Skype together so they can hear each other, but each of them records locally. So we email you WAV files or MP3 files. And what you need is a multi-track editor like that will allow you to match them together and do what you're doing right there.
Even just a conversation show like this, if we were on Skype, you'd record your microphone, I would record mine, you'd send me your file, and then I'd put those together, and then we'd lose all of the weirdness that you can sometimes have in Skype.
So much better.
Would just fall out. We just use Skype to hear each other.
Right.
And the final conversation, it's like 2 microphones recorded locally. We might as well be in the same room. But again, you've got to stack those tracks up. And if you have 5 people in the conversation, that's 5 tracks. So Ferrite's got a lot of it's multi-track. It's got a lot of important things like effects. I can do a noise gate and a compressor.
Now the effects are $10 more.
Right, that's one of the 2 in-app purchases.
Effects is one, and automation is the other.
And the automation is basically if you want to change the volume over time, so fade in the audio, fade it back out again. Okay. So it's got those features. It's got the quick selection features, and one of the ones that I really love is just using Logic or any of these other audio editors. You keep hitting the space bar to play and pause, right? Well, it's kind of terrible to have to go down to the corner and tap the play button right every time. Yeah. So it's got a double finger tap, does the trick
nice.
to play and pause. So between that and the select all triple tap and being able to grab any of these little audio handles and move them and slide them and have them fade into each other, there's so much control. And so I can do a whole, hour and a half podcast with 7 different audio tracks and edit it all on my iPad Pro without any trouble.
Have you done that?
I have. More than once.
So I have to say, I used Adobe Audition for a long time, and Cool Edit Pro. Those were both Windows apps. Amadeus Pro on the Mac to do that kind of stuff. But with a mouse and keyboard, you're right, it's not as intuitive. Touch is just a very natural way to do this.
I really like that tactile feel of being able to sort of move my audio track and slide it so it's it ends a little sooner, or cut it and then move it a little bit. It just using my hands for that, it actually feels very natural.
I'm downloading it right now.
Yeah, it's good. The guy, it's Wooji Juice is the name of the developer, and it's a couple of guys in the UK, and they did a great job. In fact, honestly, for podcast editing, I think the best buy, if you've got an iPad capable, like an iPad Air, maybe Air 2, or Pro, it's a way better deal than
$20.
Logic.
Yeah.
Right? Logic is $200 on the Mac, and this is $20.
Well, I'm putting that in my blog folder because that'll be another tool. Because occasionally I'll do audio and I'll explain what I'm talking about.
And then you can export it out as a lossless file or as an AAC file. And,
one thing I noticed with the Mac stuff is that they don't have MP3s because that's not built into the iPad.
We're about a year away from those Fraunhofer patents expiring, right? And so there are if I want to use MP3, there are some apps that will encode MP3. What I usually do is I upload it to a web service called Auphonic. I don't know if you've heard of them. Auphonic, AUPHONIC. And you can upload a file there and set your MP3 encoding, and you can put in chapter markers and have it process your audio and remove noise and stuff. And so when I'm on the iPad, I usually save my file on Dropbox and then point Auphonic at my Dropbox file, and then it does all the encoding and transferring it. It'll actually encode it, tag it, and then transfer it to my FTP server or to Libsyn or to SoundCloud or wherever you put the files.
So this is a critical part of the workflow, and this you have to do on a Mac, or can you do this on the iPad?
You can do that on the iPad.
Okay, because it's just a website.
Yeah, and so it's not a perfect workflow. It would be much better if I could just get an MP3 out of Ferrite, but I think until the MP3 patent expires, which I think is next year, it's more problematic.
And most of the time, at least for intermediate files, working in WAV or AAC is fine. I mean, it's not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The only reason you do the MP3 is for the final product that you're going to push out.
It's the most compatible format, right?
Yeah.
I think AAC stuff is basically played everywhere now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was always some weird podcast client somewhere that couldn't play it, and you got the same emails I did about it. And finally, and that's when I gave up.
It's a MP3.
We're just doing MP3s from now on.
Does anybody still do? For a while, Apple had a capability with an AAC file of doing chapters.
Yeah, so the chapters have all moved to MP3 now for the most part. Auphonic supports it. You can do chapter markers in MP3s, and that's better because then it's just in MP3s. And if there is, believe it or not, in the ID3 tag spec,
standard.
There is a spec for tags. There are a couple of apps that do it. There's a Mac app that does it now. And then Auphonic is the one that I've used for a while whenever I want to do chapter markers.
I'm adding Auphonic now to my toolkit. This is good. AUPHONIC. It's free for up to 2 hours a month.
Yeah.
And then if you
can buy more time or buy a subscription.
$11
as you
for
go.
9 hours.
And it'll also make your audio sound. It'll do some level adjustment if you want. Some noise reduction if you want. It's a really neat app. Yeah.
So Ferrite to record and edit, Auphonic for the post processing. What else do you use? That sounds like it.
That is most of it. I mean, I tend to record in Auphonic if I do recording, but I don't do a lot of that. I guess the other thing I do is iTunes. I should say my other part of this workflow is where do these files come from? Generally, they're on my Mac, and I copy them over, and that is so it's not a pure iPad workflow. I will get the files prepped on my Mac before usually I go on vacation, and then I'll drag the files onto my iPad and then edit them there while I'm gone.
That makes a lot of sense. So for me, I was most interested in the iPad Pro because I thought this would be a great portable blogging tool. Now, I'm probably using it as not for podcasts, but for audio as well. Recording, as you mentioned, recording commercials when I'm on the road. I need to record audio for the radio show. I can now do that with my iPad Pro, and I'll show you the first thing that really is a big help for me. So if I can't carry it in my man bag, it doesn't go with me, right? So it's everything in this toolkit has to go in the man bag. And the microphone I use, I'm really kind of fond of. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I've shown it before. This comes to us from Shure. It's in their Motiv line, M-O-T-I-V. And these microphones are very good, actually. And one of the things that makes them extra good is it's got a lightning connector.
Yeah.
So suddenly, I don't need to use a USB microphone. I have a microphone that digitally records that plugs right into the USB port. Now, this is the MV88. They have other ones. They have one that's fun. It looks like an old rock and roll microphone. You see the way it's set up, it has stereo capsules left and right, so it can even record stereo audio. And when you plug it in, you're going to want to set it up with the Motiv software. It's about, I can't remember, I think it was $150 for the microphone. It's not a cheap microphone, but the quality is not cheap either. The Motiv settings are actually one of the things I really like. You can see you have a 5-channel equalizer. You have wind reduction. I've taken off the big muff to show you what it looks like, but normally you'd use it with this muff on, which does a pretty good job by itself. It also has a compressor. You can compress light or even heavy. I turn it off, but a compressor will be helpful if you're, for instance, recording many voices, and some people are quieter than others. It'll help bring all those voices into the same dynamic range. It compresses the dynamic range, so the quieter stuff gets louder, the louder stuff gets quieter, and it all sounds. For radio, it's heavily compressed. The limiter is very useful, so you don't overdrive it. And you can see if I turn off the limiter, I can actually peak it out here into the red, which you really don't want to do. It also has a variety of different patterns. And that's really nice. You're gonna. This is the widest pattern. You can even set how wide the wide pattern is. But it also has what they call a cardioid pattern, which a lot of podcasters use a cardioid. If you use a Yeti, you're familiar with a cardioid. It's cardioid because it's heart-shaped, like an upside-down heart, and it does good rejection of sound behind the microphone. That's kind of what you want. This is kind of interesting for 2 voices. If you're going to do a 2-voice recording, it uses the left capsule for one voice. You position, and this mic rotates, so you can really orient it to make it work with a variety of different table positions. But you'd have one person speaking on the left side, one person on the right side, and then those would go to the left and right channel, and then I can load it up in ferrite, for instance, and I can actually fix any problems. I don't know what this is for, but this is some sort of weird setting. They call it raw mid-side, which tells me they're probably not shaping it in any way. You control the volume here, and you even can choose the kind of recording. So I'm recording for speech, but you notice if you choose music, it'll immediately set things differently. These are presets, essentially. And you know, I always use speech, of course, and I tend to, frankly, use a narrow recording field because I want as much of the side noise eliminated as possible. I also turn down the compression, but that's just for me. But why do I have this? Well, I told you it was a blogging tool. So I start my blog. If you're on Squarespace, Squarespace has excellent software to write blogs. It shows you not only your previous blog posts, I've got drafts in here, and it allows you to moderate comments as well, which is very handy, especially if you get spammers, because you really want to kill those fast. So I use this to post. You see, I've started a new blog post. I'm going to pick 3 songs that I want to play at my funeral. Maybe a little morbid. I might be rewriting that before I actually post it. But
hey, it's good to have aspirations.
But so I do that a lot. I take notes. In fact, this is the blogging tool, but I think you'll find I use other tools like Editorial. I don't know if you're familiar with this, which is a really wonderful writing program. It supports markup, but it also supports other formats, a task-focused format and so forth. So I have in here some blog notes for future blog posts as I'm working, and I'll work in here, and this also has a screenwriting format if you're a screenwriter, so you could do some additional stuff. I can work in there, and as with most apps of this kind on the Mac, you can easily get the text from here to there, not have to use cut and paste, but if you had to. Notability is another very nice program for doing notes, both pen notes and text notes. So if this is, and recorded notes. So this is a great tool for note taking in general, but I think for blogging as well. Eventually it's going to end up in my Squarespace blogging tool. There are, if you have other blog platforms, WordPress and so forth, there are blogging tools that'll work similarly to that. One of the reasons I have a microphone is because I then also like to read my blog posts. This is something I've just started to do. I'm more comfortable in working in audio, so I will record kind of an audio version of the blog post and then embed it into the blog post later. And I'll show you how I do that. Of course, I have my Motif microphone. This is, by the way, good enough that I can use it on the radio show to record ads for the radio show. It's that good. I will usually record in the Motif app, but you can record in other apps. And I'll take the post, and then I need to get it somewhere. So typically what I'll do is I'll save it out to Dropbox. Now when you save something to Dropbox, it saves it into the apps/Motif folder. That's you know, some usefulness. If I wanted, you pointed out Ferrite could pull from Dropbox.
Right.
I also have a program called Audio Share that I find really useful. Audio Share allows me to take a audio file and then share it out on a variety of different platforms. So let me see if I have any files here. Yeah, this is, so here's a file. I can do simple trimming, normalization also. That's where you try to get everything to be the same level, not quite the same as compression. And then this is kind of fun. I have various ways to share it. So I can share it to SoundCloud, but also to Foursquare, Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. And that's, by the way, my Facebook site, and you can also share to a Facebook page from there. So this is another way to create an audio blog and share it to a variety of places. You can, of course, email it. You can put it on the pasteboard and share it. And so I could then share it to you if I wanted to. Look, Jason popped up. But I could also share it to any of these other apps if I want to. So this is a tool that I could record in. I don't typically, but it would be easy enough. What I have been doing until I got this nice audio share program is I wrote an if this then that script, and I still will probably use this from time to time. If this then that, of course, we've talked about it before, allows you to make you know, little programs that do things that are useful for you. And I have an if this then that. Where's my here it is. I have an if this then that that says, let's go back one because that's the second stage in this, that if there's a new audio file uploaded to the Motif folder, automatically put it on SoundCloud. And I had to do this because they took the record to SoundCloud feature out of iOS, which frustrated me greatly. In fact, I'm wondering how long SoundCloud has for this world. I'm going to continue to use it to share, but I think they're in a little bit of trouble. In any event, Dropbox to SoundCloud, and then you see I have a second script that if there's a new public track on SoundCloud, tweet that out, and I have a robotic Twitter handle, Chief Twitbot. So these are kind of mixed up workflows, but I can easily, using the Motif microphone, create a quick audio blog, which then I save to Dropbox, gets shared publicly to Soundtrack, and posted on the Chief Twit using if this then that. I could write a blog post and then record it and put the SoundCloud into the blog post that way. And then I use these various tools, GoodNotes, editorial, Notability, to write down ideas. I also use the Day One Journal from time to time. That's another great way to kind of make regular posts. I'm trying to do more regular posts. And what I'm doing is kind of a hybrid of audio and text. And one of the reasons I was really intrigued by the new iPad Pro, of course, the keyboard is going to make it easier to write those posts.
Yeah.
But the good camera means that I can maybe even do more video and more photos directly from it. So I'm seeing this really with the addition of this microphone and some special software designed for those particular tasks, that this is kind of a great portable, I don't know, media creation tool.
Yeah.
I don't want to do something as formal as we do here at Twit. I already do a lot of media, as you do, but sometimes you want to do something more personal. And this, it just feels very personal scale. I could even put, if I had Serenity's skills, I could even put some sketches in there with the pencil. So
yeah, and that Motif speaker or microphone is very impressive because it's purpose built for use on iOS. That's the beauty of it. And so it works. It knows how much power it's going to get from the dock connector.
I don't have to worry about
Lightning
that.
Connector, and then it's controlled by the app, and that's very nice.
If you buy it, it does come with a USB Lightning to USB adapter, so you could also use it as a USB mic on your
Yeah,
computer.
it goes the other way, right? It's simplified and built around iOS, and then there's a connector
And
if you want to stick it on a Mac.
It's compact, so I can just pop it in my bag, and I've got it. Between these two, I feel like I have no excuse not to post regularly.
Yeah. Well, Serenity has one of those motifs too, and,
Does she?
and it sounds great. She's recorded a podcast with it.
I could, if you want, I'll play. This is the track, just so you get some idea. And here's another little tip. Sometimes you attempt. I'll record it in my room. The problem with doing stuff in your room is you get echoes coming off of the walls, and so you sound like you're in a chamber. We do a lot to eliminate that. So this, I went outside to record it, and you can hear the birds in the background, but it eliminates that room tone. And I think it's hear the birds, but I think this is a blog post from April Fool's Day, but it's not an April Fool's blog post. But I think the voice quality is great, and you don't get that room tone.
No, it sounds great. Yeah, there's nothing worse than the echo combined with like the air conditioning.
Yeah, so I actually went outdoors to record that. And then the other tip, you can also go under your blankets. Although I frankly like the birds in the background a little bit better. So, podcast, blogging.
Yeah, you can do a lot of the stuff on the iPhone too. It's not just the iPad.
I could actually. Everything I just showed you, I could, with the exception of I don't want to type.
Well, that's it.
On the little bitty screen.
That's it. But I'd love to get to the point where I can do, and Ferrite, I should say, works on the iPhone. You can do it. It would just be problematic, but you could do it. It just is a pain because you got to move around on that little screen, but you could do it. And I'm looking forward to the day where I can have a nice microphone and put in some headphones and do a podcast from my iPhone.
I think that motif is a great start.
Yeah, it may happen this year.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens in iOS 10.
Yeah. I absolutely, for everything but the typing, the iPhone, it has all these apps, does all the same things, and it works quite well. I'm thrilled to find out about the Sophonic. I'm going to get a subscription to that and add a link to, that'll be in my blog folder as well. It's getting a little crowded in there.
It's nice to just offload that to that web service and say you handle, because you can save your SoundCloud and your FTP server or whatever in there, and just say you take care of it now.
Yeah.
Press save, press start production, and it does it.
That's good.
It's good.
Questions. You ready? From our iOS Today family, Franklin wrote, and I thought this would be a good one for Jason. Leo said a couple of shows back that he'd let us know his favorite baseball scoring app. He hasn't done it yet, and the season is fast approaching. Yeah, like it starts today. So maybe on today's show. Well, good news. Both Jason and I are baseball nerds.
It's true.
So do you go to a game and score the game?
I do.
I do too. I love to do that. And you used to, when you go to the game, you buy the program and you get that piece of paper with a little pencil and you'd score the game. And the reason we score the game, I don't know why you do it. I do it not so much for memento, although if you go to a lot of games, there's been years where I've gone to 40 or 50 games, and you have your notebook and you can bore your friends and relations by saying,
Here's Buster Posey on his rookie
look at
year
this,
in
back-to-back
spring training.
home runs.
Yep.
There's the other reason I do it is because if you don't do it, it's very easy to baseball game completely lose track.
To totally space out. No, it focuses you. It gives you sort of something to focus on while you're there, and it's kind of relaxing.
Let's see what you use, and I'll show you what I use.
So I use paper at a major league game because I feel like why not? But when my daughter was playing softball, I was the official scorer, and so I used it's still called ESPN iScore. It's iScore.
That's mine too.
Is that yours?
It is the best.
And
I've tried them all.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd come up with something better, but this is absolutely the best.
No, and it works like a little bit like an interview. So, and you can be as detailed. Like I don't have the players in here because I just made this up on the spur of the moment. You can chart pitches if you want. And say ball strike. It's got that.
And it's very easy because you just tap it.
So it's an interview. So ball, strike, and then if you say out, it's going to bring up.
How did that happen?
How did it happen? It was a ground out. Where was the ball hit? Was it a line drive? It was hit softly, and then it'll say who fielded it, and you go second to first. Done.
See how easy? You don't even have to remember that it's 4-3.
So it asks you. And so if you say, here a ball was hit in play, but it was a single. Where was it hit? It was hit over there. And again, you don't have to fill in all that detail. You don't have to say it was a hard grounder into the hole, but you can if you want. And it will keep track of everything for you, which is it's pretty cool. And at the end, not only do you get stats if you're compiling stats for your team, but it'll generate a traditional scorebook. It'll do a box score. It'll generate like something that looks like a hand-drawn scorebook. It's pretty amazing. See, here we've got it's charting what happened in the inning.
Doesn't that look beautiful?
Right there. It's not the prettiest thing to see. It's got an online component too, where if you, I think you pay a little bit of money and you can send everybody who cares about the game, if you're in the playoffs or something,
you can really annoy
send them
your
a link.
friends.
And you can send them a link, and they can follow along on the web.
Right.
And you can also set it to tweet. So if you've
That's the one that annoys your friends. They have a Twitter cast feature that you log into your Twitter, and it will tweet.
I recommend
you
create a new account for your team if you do that. But I've seen people do that for their high school or even little league baseball teams before, and it was great for my daughter's softball team. And it gives you data, which is hilarious. I actually
it's
a couple
really
times I said to the coach, I said, this kid always hits it to the right side, because I had the data. It shows when they come up to bat the next time. It shows what they did the last time.
That's not fair in a softball game.
Little shift. Put in the shift.
I love the idea that you can stream it. They have iScorecast.com, and you get a customer ID so people can follow you. The reason I ended up getting it is because you can also, for $20, download the entire Major League roster.
Yes.
So it's kind of a pain when you get to the ball game to put in the roster. They always do it too fast. They always do it right before the game.
Right,
it's
which
like,
was always my problem with my daughter's softball.
Yeah,
right? Was that I got to data enter all the names of the first names of a bunch of 10-year-old girls.
So if you subscribe to this, they update it every day. So right before the game, you go to the game, you'll update the roster.
And then
so
you just say Giants Brewers, this is the game,
Exactly.
and you
Couldn't
can
be
score it
easier.
yourself.
And it keeps the stats up to date too. So you actually, even if you haven't been to every game, you will have the stats for every game already in your scorebook. Well, great minds. I'm glad to know.
That's the best one.
I've tried them all, and nothing is perfect, to be honest. Because they change substitutions. Something you got something wrong.
Sometimes it's hard
to go back.
Hard to fix the mistakes, and also baseball's rules are weird, right? When I would be late to a game, my wife would be scoring on her iPad, and she would say to me, "Oh, it was this thing. Was it a fielder's choice? What was it?" And iScore tries really hard to basically say what happened, where'd the ball go, was there an out, and it tries to do the right thing, but baseball is so complex and weird at times in terms of its rules that sometimes it can get very frustrating.
Yeah, that's why you also, if you're going to do this, you have to wear the cap, the radio headphones, so that you can hear what the official scorer did and have your scorebook. And if you're going to hold a foam figure and a hot dog,
it's the only way to maintain statistical integrity. It's the only way.
It's the only way to enjoy a great baseball game. And I hear the Giants are winning in their home opener, so that's good news. So thank you for asking us, Franklin. You got more of an answer probably than you wanted. Here's one more, and you know what? You're going to have to be the adjudicator on this. Because we've gone back and forth. Terry writes, in your recent episode of iOS Today, you, meaning me, stated that apps running in the background do not use any resources and are nothing more than thumbnails. It's not quite what I said, but I said iOS is very aggressive about shutting down apps. Very few apps are allowed to run in the background. There are a handful of apps.
Right.
And most of the time when you look at the recent apps, those are just pictures of apps that you once ran. They are not actually there. He says, I would question this based on the fact that I purposely leave the If This Then That Then app running as a background app on my iPad Air so that my Amazon Echo will add items to my shopping list in the Reminders app. I've tested this. If I close If This Then That on my Air, then the Echo no longer adds items to my shopping lists and Reminders. To me, this proves that at least some background apps do use some resources. And I know, Jason, you know the real answer, so tell us.
Well, some background apps use some resources. An app can be set, they've got a few different statuses that they can have. They can say, wait for a push notification. If This Then That and Reminders is a real interesting trick, because if that app isn't active, all of those Alexa reminders just stack up.
Right.
And but once it runs, then it pulls them all out of your reminders app, and
See, that's the key.
yeah, it's tricky. So if you force quit them, then they completely die. They usually try to say, well, I want to remain open, or I want to wait for this certain event. They can be forcibly ejected at any time, so you kind of can't rely on them.
That's the key.
And then
Apple reserves the right to close them.
To close every app, and certainly the ones that aren't registered to perform an action.
And that was a big deal. Remember, not so long ago, it didn't do any backgrounding, and they suddenly said, okay, well, Pandora and some music apps can continue to play. Remember, for a long time, you closed, you exited, pressed the home button, Pandora had stopped playing.
Yeah, that was like iOS 3, I think. They finally said, okay, audio apps can run
audio
in the
apps. But it's a very limited thing. The app has to sign up for it, ask for it ahead of time, and Apple reserves the right to close the app anyway.
Right. Things like downloading content, like the idea that you can open Comixology and start downloading a comic and then close out of Comixology and go somewhere else. And I'm not sure if it does this or not. It has the ability to register and say, I'd like to keep downloading my thing.
It kind of feels like it's like Audible. I do that with Audible all the time.
Right.
I'm downloading a book. It kind of continues. And then
for
it stops.
a while. Well, and that's it. There's a time limit, too.
Yeah.
So we can say, I want to try to download this in the background. But the system's like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And that's just part of the deal of living on iOS. And that's how they keep the battery life. Because that's one of the top complaints I have from my friends who use Android is the battery life is killing me.
Because stuff's running in the background.
And it's because it's not as aggressive as iOS is at killing background processes.
The real point of even talking about this is to get rid of the old notion, the mistaken notion, that it's worth it to go through recent apps and close them.
Right.
Do not do that. In fact, it may end up costing you battery life because you're closing apps that are going to now have to start all the way up again and reload. So if they are keeping a stub in the background, you're actually making it harder for them.
Yeah, once in a
and
while.
you're not saving anything.
Once in a while, you may get a misbehaving app that needs to be
I've
quit.
done that. If the app doesn't work right. Yeah.
Right, that does happen from time to time.
But I see people routinely just going, oh, let me go in here. Oh no, I don't need that anymore. I don't need that. Oh no, let's close all. That is not a good use of your time.
Most of those aren't open. Most of those are not actually open. Like you said, there's a screenshot that was taken the last time you closed it, and it's sitting there pretending to be real, but it's not real. And if you tap on it, you're going to watch it start up because it wasn't really running.
Right. Thank you. I think, Terry, now you're right. Your experiment was legit, Terry, but within limits. Like it might not always work.
Right. So if that app is running until he kills it, but the system might also kill it at some point.
You can't guarantee it. All right, get your hat. And I think you have an appropriate hat, as do I. Actually, this was an appropriate hat.
Yeah, we'll count it.
It's app cap time, ladies and gentlemen. And Jason and I, as Giants fans, are wearing our Giants caps. In my case, this was the cap we used to wear when Pablo Sandoval played for us, not the Boston Red Sox. Hey, he's still playing baseball. We called him the Panda because he was just a giant, big, fuzzy home run machine.
Yep.
And a great
Panda.
third baseman.
I got my Giants hat too.
You got your old style. That's the old orange and black.
This is the first Giants hat I ever got. Had the orange brim on it, so I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah, and we wear these caps for one and only one reason: to look stupid on the show album art. No, because we want to highlight an app or a program that we think is really great. And Jason, why don't you kick things off?
All right. Well, I was gonna promote Ferrite, but I already did that, so I'm gonna say appropriately, MLB at Bat is such a great app on iOS. It is in the Hall of Fame of iOS apps. Yeah. It's great on the iPad. It's great on the iPhone. If you subscribe to their subscription service, you can watch out-of-town video. You can listen to audio home and away for all the games. It's got game day. It's got live box scores, pitch-by-pitch information. It's really well written. There's I think an Apple Watch app. There's an Apple TV app. They do a great job. They are always embracing the platform with new features. It does picture-in-picture, so you can have the game playing while you're doing other things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's nice. A new one.
Oh, I like that.
And there are always new features. And
new since last season.
This year they've increased the frame rate too. So if you ever remember watching a stream before in the bat, when somebody swings the bat, it sort of goes chop, 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 chop. They do up to 60 frames a second now. So it's super smooth and looks really awesome. So it's just it's good all around. Great.
Now, it's a little confusing what you get for what price.
Right.
Because in the app, they'll say, oh, only $20 for the whole season. That's not the game, all the games. That's the audio. Right?
So if you want to listen to the radio for all of the games on all platforms, and it works on Sonos too. But it works on iOS, Apple TV, Sonos, wherever on your Mac, on your PC, wherever. That's the $20 package, and then for $100 you get all the out-of-town video. So not your local teams.
And that's the other
in-town
thing.
performance. Yeah.
You still have blackouts.
Unless you're
They're
in,
sold out or
it's
whatever.
complicated.
Yeah.
Unless you're in certain markets where your local team is broadcast by, I think, Fox, or if you're in Canada. At that point, if you're a cable subscriber, you can still use the app. But if you're in our market, you can't do that yet because they haven't made a deal with Comcast.
It's very frustrating.
They're working on it, but you know, when a cable company pays $30 billion like they did in LA for the Dodgers,
they don't want you to watch it on the
they want you to have
iPad.
cable. That's why they spent $30 billion.
Yeah.
So, but if you're, I love baseball in general.
Audio's fine.
Right, the audio is good, and I like.
And audio's never blacked out, right? You
And
can
the
always
audio's
listen
never
to-
blacked
yeah.
out. You can listen to home or away audio,
Yeah.
which is, it's great to listen to those Milwaukee Brewers games and hear the local ads
I
from
love
Milwaukee.
hearing the local ads.
And I like putting on a game sometimes, like the Giants aren't playing. That's fine. Like 10 in the morning, there's an East Coast game that's starting. I'll just put it on the TV. It's great.
lulling. It's relaxing. It
It
makes
is,
you feel good.
again, like keeping score. It's calming.
We are baseball fans. There is one thing you might want to do, though, when you install MLB at Bat, is go to the notifications window, because it will buzz you nonstop.
Yeah, when it says MLB News, it means like, hey, we're running a contest. It's not news. So yeah, turn all. I have them all turned off except for the start of the game for my favorite team.
That's good.
So it'll tell me the Giants are about to start.
Right.
That's all. I don't want to know that the game ended.
Right.
I don't want to know that somebody scored. I just want to know.
Oh, don't
hey,
you want to know the
game's on.
finals, though?
No, because if I'm
you might be
DVRing
watching
it, I don't
yeah.
want to know.
Yeah. Lead change, score change, game. All right, I'm going to keep those 4 because why not?
You want to be in the loop.
Yeah,
I want to.
Yeah.
I want mystery in my life.
It is a baseball fan.
And it's got access to all of their some great content. They have have writers for every team and every game, and
it's gotten better.
The highlights are great. They do a thing called the condensed game, which is every at bat of a game in like less than 30 minutes.
Oh, that's fun. And you can watch that without a subscription, or no?
Some of the stuff is without, and then usually there's a free game of the day. So even if you aren't a subscriber, there's at least one video broadcast that you can watch every day.
My app cap actually is tied to the interview I just completed, and I want to give it a little plug because I was so thrilled earlier today, and I know, Jason, you got to say hi, Bill Atkinson in. And now, if you're an Apple fan and a Macintosh fan, you got to know about Bill Atkinson. He's the guy, he was in many ways, well, one of the fathers of the Macintosh. He wrote the quick draw routines, the low-level graphics routine, without which no program on the Mac would have worked.
Yep.
He wrote Mac Paint, which is the iconic program. Remember Hello written out in script? That's Mac Paint. Or the woman, the Japanese painting with the flowing hair, Susan Kerr's beautiful illustration on Mac Paint. He also wrote HyperCard. I mean, any one of those 3 would be enough to go down.
Those are all Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Hall of Fame things.
3 of them. He created General Magic with Andy Hertzfeld, which itself was not a great success because it was way ahead of its time. But among other people, Andy Rubin and Tony Fadell were General Magic employees. And he is a great photographer and a sweet man. So if you get a chance, I think it was so long, he gave us 3 hours of his time. Sorry, Jason, you had to wait. But he was so generous. I think we're going to divide it up into 2 separate shows, 2-hour-and-a-half long triangulations. So today and next week, please listen if you're a fan. Even if not, this is an amazing.
He's a brilliant guy with great perspective on the whole arc of technology, not just from the 80s, but all the way to the future.
He's still wired in.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a guy resting on his laurels.
Some of the smartest stuff I've heard about the future of technology has come from him.
And the funny thing is, his most recent project, he says, is more code than HyperCard, QuickDraw, and Mac Paint all put together. And it's a little app for the iPad and iPhone that I just love. We've recommended it before, but he reminded me I ought to get, and you ought to get, and we all want to support Bill, PhotoCard. PhotoCard allows you to take images on your iPad or your iPhone. Pick one of your great images or choose one of his great images. He bundles in a bunch of beautiful images, maybe add some stickers, and create a postcard. You actually get mailed. You can put your own stamps in there, even have stamps that have your own images in there, which is pretty sweet. I'm going to put a kitty cap stamp on there. You can address it to your friends. You can write a message as well. And it comes out not as a little postcard, but at these big 5.5 by 8. He says 1/2 of a 8.5 by 11 page. So 5.5 by 4 1/4, I guess. I don't know. It's big. It's bigger. Look it. It's as big as your iPad
Is it
screen.
like 8.5 by 6?
Yeah, something.
By 5.5?
Yeah, that's what it would be. 8.5 by 6, 5.5. And you see how beautifully it comes out. It's got real postage. So when you do it, it actually gets mailed from Bill's house to you. And there's a picture of Bill and his dog on the back, his beautiful wife Sue. And I have to say, I really want everybody to do it. It's free to download it. Bill says he's losing money at this point on this because he just wants to get everybody to print out pictures and send them to their friends and family. But he says if we can just get enough volume on this thing, he can move it to Android, add it to Android, not move it, but add it to Android. He can get some help because Bill goes through these every morning. Every one of these checks. He even says, you know, if I'll see like the face is dark, I'll do a little highlight, do a little dodge on a little burn on the face, correct color. He's actually doing that by hand every morning, and then they all get mailed out. And I think this is just so great. They're laminated. You could put them on your refrigerator. You could put them in a book. It's just a really nice idea. This is Bill Atkinson's photo card. It's free to download. And then what happens is you buy a pack of credits, and you can do that right in there, right in the. Let me do this here. Right in the app. So, oops, I keep pushing the wrong button. It's such a small screen. Credits are very affordable. It's roughly $1.50, including the 49-cent postage. Roughly $1.50 per card. Photo card by Bill Atkinson. And man, these are beautifully printed. So this is the best. There's others out there. They're not nearly as good. Jason Snell, thank you so much for filling in for us.
I'm happy to fill in whenever Megan is on assignment.
Love doing the show. Of course, Jason's often seen on our other shows, Twit and TNT and Mac Break Weekly. And
I get around.
You're the greatest. And does his own wonderful podcasts on the Incomparable Network. And sixcolors.com, which is his very... Oh, you got the dot. Your dot review from Dan Morin. All right.
Doesn't sound that good, but it listens really well.
I can't wait to get my dot. I'm looking for my dot.
It's coming.
It's coming. I ordered 2. Kind of got an echo problem. Thank you, Jason. Thank you all for doing the show with us. We're here every Monday, around about 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern Time, 20:30 UTC. We'll see you next time on iOS Today. Bye-bye. Now, this is the new thing we do. We toss our caps. See you later.